To help you avoid or become aware of errors early, I want to outline for you the most common errors that I hear as a judge of this music. That way, you can be on the lookout, or listen out, for these problems from the very start. These common mistakes will also, of course, be listed on your practice plan for easy reference. Articulations. Not surprisingly, considering the overall emphasis of this etude, articulation errors are easily the most common struggle in this particular etude. Notice where your tongue hits. Practice in small sections with a focus on great accuracy, and I encourage you to even record yourself just to double check your articulation accuracy. You want not only correct tongue and slur placement, but also clear, light, bouncy staccatos. We want space around the staccatos. It needs to be distinct, not just a tongue, it needs to be a staccato. Rhythms. As already mentioned, there's not a lot of rhythmic variation going on here. Keep those subdivisions running in your mind to keep the eighth notes on track. Work regularly with and without a metronome, checking yourself for steady tempo and even rhythms. Tap a toe to lend a physical anchor to your tempo. And make sure you're just tapping a toe, not like your whole foot. Just tap a toe so that motion doesn't translate up your body. Avoid letting breaths alter your rhythm and tempo. Be sure to breathe in time. And we've already talked about not letting your articulations alter that rhythm either. As in the scale in thirds, I also regularly notice that students add L1, your C key, to that fourth space E flat. Remember, this muddles the tone and it will be very apparent to any flute judge. Work diligently from the start in patterns to avoid this bad habit. No L1 down on that mid-register E flat. Okay, sometimes I also hear awkward octaves. So take a look at those sections with the slurred groups of two and notice that for the most part, with the exception of the very end measures, those groups are octaves. We want to avoid heavy emphasis on either the lower or upper notes or any rhythmic disruption. So let me show you a little bit what I mean. Hear that very heavy upper note emphasis? We don't want that, but we also don't want to overdo the low. Because that's going to start actually altering our rhythm, and that had some high and some low emphasis. But you get the point. We don't want extra emphasis on the high or on the low. Nothing overwhelming at the very least. Nice and even, or a slight emphasis on the low. Also, check your fingerings to ensure you're using the proper fingerings in both octaves. Some of these notes differ, right? Not every note is the same in every octave. So in this case, E flat and F. Overall, we're striving for a feeling of smoothness and continuity in these octave areas, thinking moving steadily forward. If you were to place any slight emphasis, that slight emphasis belongs on the lower note of the octave. But again, it shouldn't be this overwhelming or distracting emphasis, not a rhythmically significant emphasis, just a really light one. Since slurs also indicate importance, we can justify a slight emphasis on the first note of the slur, the one that's tongued, especially since those notes are always a lower pitch than the surrounding ones. This actually can also help you if you struggle with the higher notes being much louder or overwhelming their lower counterparts. So that would be when you could put a little bit of emphasis on that lower note, which would sound kind of like this. And of course, we'd speed that up later, but hopefully you can hear that little bit of emphasis. If you find it difficult to play the octaves fairly evenly, both tonally, dynamically, or smoothly, you can still refer to those further studies section. There's more tips, tricks, and practice ideas for octave work. Okay, the next thing that we need to talk about is lack of dynamics. Though I group dynamics into the beyond category, it doesn't mean that they aren't an incredibly relevant part of playing, of course. In this case, you have only a few written dynamics, which should absolutely be observed. But that also doesn't mean they should be the only dynamic variations in this piece. In the practice videos, especially as we get to the combining stage, we'll discuss some dynamic options. Err on the side of overdoing your dynamics. As a general rule, dynamics often sound more pronounced to us, since we are just inches from our flutes, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they come out as dramatically across the room where your judge is or where your audience would be someday. So I recommend recording yourself and listening back. listen to hear, are your dynamics really coming across as apparent as you think they are from behind the flute? Always err on the side of overdoing the dynamics.